Hi guys, today we are going to be taking some notes about soil. At this point, hopefully you have been able to accomplish all the other activities and assignments that we've had posted for this unit, dealing with both the food and fiber system and the factory farming web quest. So now we're going to go through what makes soil so important in terms of agriculture. So it's up to you if you want to make a Foursquare or a Frayer. You can copy what's on the screen right now, just pause until you're ready. Or you can just go through and take notes like you would normally, whichever way you prefer. So the first thing we're going to look at is what is soil. Soil is that loose upper layer of the Earth's surface where plants grow. It consists of a mix of all of our organic material. Remember that humus that we talked about back in our waste unit when it comes from composting. This includes things like decayed plants and animals, as well as broken bits of rocks and minerals. The formation of soil is a very slow process. Over time, climate, organisms, topography, which is the shape of our earth, are going to break down rocks. That is called weathering. Think way back to your last physical science class, maybe it was middle school for you, where you looked at weathering and erosion. So weathering is the breaking down of that material, usually from weather activities, so wind, rain, temperature changes. And then erosion is taking that material and carrying it from one place to another. It can take over 500 years to form 1 inch of soil. So it is an extremely slow process, which is why soil is so very important. Here you can see a quick breakdown of the formation of soil over time. So the base of our soil is called a bedrock. On top of that is what we call the parent material. And then over time, as this parent material and bedrock break down, we can get soil forming. Seeds can be dropped by passing animals, and here eventually you can get growth. This is a quick visual of all the things that have happened in the world just in the time it took 1 inch of soil to form. So everything from the early 1800s, 1500s down here, and then up here should have been more to our current history, but unfortunately the picture was cut off by the screen. So there are 3 basic types of soil: sand, silt, and clay. These are based on how big the grains of soil is, as well as the texture, how they feel. It is important to note that most soil is actually a mix of some form of these. So you can have sandy and silty soil, or silty clay soil, and then we also get it broken down into other subcategories like loam, peat, that we'll talk about later in the year. So these are again your 3 basic types: loam, sandy soil, and clay. And then this is what's called a soil triangle. And we look at how much of our soil sample is silt, how much is clay, how much is sand, and then depending on that gives us a classification. So take a second and think about why soil could be so important that farmers actually refer to it as black gold. Take a look at all the things involved. So soil is so very important because it does a variety of ecological system needs. It filters our water, it provides essential nutrients to our forests and crops, and it also acts like a carbon sink, which we talked about way back in the beginning of the year with the carbon cycle. So soil is able to absorb excess carbon from the atmosphere, which can help in terms of climate change and air pollution cleaning. But for our purposes, we're really focusing on soil in terms of growing, so crops here. So we're going to look at what's called a soil profile. On the back of your notes or wherever you have space, you can take a second and jot down this quick picture here. You don't have to add in all the materials, but it would be good to show like our topsoil is where organisms, your microorganisms and things can be found, and then our stuff that grows on top. And then again, you can add in some text boxes here as we go. So a soil profile is a cross-section view showing the layers of soil which are called horizons. It's basically as if you dug down and you could look at soil from a side view, like this. So from a higher ecological perspective, we break soil into what's called horizons. So we have the O, the A, the B, and the C. For our purposes, we're going to simplify that a little bit and just look at the overall sections. So the first section, the part that we walk on, is called topsoil. It's the top layer, hence the name, which contains most organic material. So most of our living things are going to be found in the topsoil. This is also where it is most nutrient rich. So this is where the roots of plants and crops are going to be found. This is that layer. If you dug down a little bit, you would find things like insects, worms, other dead decaying material. Right below the topsoil, you have what's called subsoil. That prefix sub refers to something below or in place of. So here we have the subsoil, the soil below. It is found immediately below the surface, and it contains lower amounts of organic material and nutrients, but there are some plants and crops that have root systems that are so long enough that can get down into that subsoil and are actually adapted to pulling out whatever nutrients might be available. You see this with some wheat varieties as well as in desert ecosystems. Then we move into our parent material, which is just rock. So there's no organic material here, no living things. It's just rock and minerals. And this is the layer that becomes weathered and broken down over time and breaks into small pieces. Those pieces then continue to break down and eventually mix with nutrients and organic material to form our soil. The lowest layer of a soil profile is bedrock. This is the very bottom. It is the final soil layer. It can be kilometers deep into the earth, so miles deep. And something like an event, like an earthquake, can push a piece of bedrock to the surface, and that's where the cycle can start of breaking down the parent material and start that soil making process over again. If you go into take geology, where you've currently taken geology, then you understand that rock cycle. So rocks can change over time, they can come up, they can be buried, and go through that way. So that's how we keep getting this layer of soil forming over and over again. So since we're not together in class right now, the activity that we were going to do was grow something together. So if you have the materials or the opportunity, I highly recommend that you do this. You do not need a lot of space. You don't have to make a garden or anything like that. You can just pick up a seed packet. You can even order them online. Things that grow well in pots for our vegetables would be tomatoes, peppers, lettuces, even some fruits like strawberries. I've seen somebody try to grow a watermelon in a pot. It doesn't work so well, but go for it. Or you could just do flowers. You simply follow the instructions that's on the seed packet. It'll tell you how deep to plant the seeds, how many seeds you can fit in one pot, how much water it needs, how much sunlight it needs. And then as they get bigger, if you have the space outside, you can certainly transplant them when it gets warmer, or you can just have a potted garden in your house. So you can have some potted lettuces on a windowsill or some tomatoes, or even smaller, you could do herbs like rosemary, parsley, mint, and then you can have them for your cooking needs or whatever you might want to do with them. If you don't want to do vegetables, grow some flowers. You can see what they do from sprout to finish and how long that takes, how much sunlight they need, how much water they need. And it'll give you something to do, maybe brighten up your day too while you're stuck inside during this time. So once you're finished with this, if you need to pause, rewind, go back to anything to get your notes, you can. Then you're going to go back to our activity on that blend space link that you clicked on for this. There is a Soil Horizons activity to click on next. That'll just take you to a quick drag and drop to look at those soil profiles again. And then when you're finished with that, there's an Edpuzzle that's linked both on that blend space and our Canvas page. The Edpuzzle is only about 10 minutes long, and if you want to do it more than once, I can reset it for you. Just send me an email like we would if we were in class. If you have any other questions, just reach out through email or through our Remind.